first of many words, you know? So he would just, fine. And he was always listening to Christian tapes as he was working. And, you know, as time passed, and I'd go in there and ask him, hey, Richard, what do you think about what he just said? About, I mean, that's not how I learned. And he said, Daniel, go read the Bible and find out whether what he said is true. And so, for the first time in my life, I actually picked up the Bible and started reading it. And started reading about God's love. Started reading about, receiving Christ by faith and not works. And so as time passed, I'd go and I'd borrow his tapes, and I'd listen to them. Then I'd go and read the Gospels and read the Word, and I started to realize, that really is what the Word says. It was sort of like the Bereans when Paul encouraged them to not believe even what he was saying. He said, go read the Scriptures and see if what I'm saying is true. Test it. Anyhow, so I did. And, every once in a while, Hope would tell me about the Lord too. Because, I really wasn't saved. I was pretty wild and crazy. And I remember being in my apartment one day. And I remember being on the floor. With my drugs and my bottle of Jack Daniels. And I said, man, there's got to be more to life than this. And I had an encounter with the Lord for the first time. It was powerful. And it changed the course of my life. So I give credit to Richard for leading me to Christ in so many ways. Not long after that, he was baptizing me in a tub at the back of his house. And for the first time, I just experienced the love of God. Experienced the love of God. Anyways, I really thought that was you, man. That was the Lord working through you. I thank you. Anyway, so I continue to visit the shop and asking questions about, how'd you learn to do this? I read books. Daniel. It was never Daniel for some reason. It was always Daniel. And so I'd go in there and ask him if I could help him. And like I said, he wasn't a man of many words. He would want you to observe what he was doing and learn that way. He was like the old Kung Fu master. He wasn't a man of many words, but he just showed you by his actions. He would come and say, no, Daniel, you send with the grain. Oh, thank you, master. So he would show you by example. That's the way he wanted you to learn. The other thing is that I observed while I was there is I observed Peter and Paul. And they weren't in the house. Of course, back then you only had Pong and the little hand games, but they weren't in there wasting time. He always had them working. I mean, he didn't let them mess around. He had them working. And so he was such a craftsman. And he built some beautiful things. And so I saw Paul and Peter kind of coming up through the ranks. And, later in life, they became their own craftsmen. And built some just beautiful pieces. I remember going along with Pa when he had to deliver a pretty big size antique he had restored. So I went with him. And he and the lady were just going on and on and on. And I was so enraptured by his knowledge of the wood and the region that it came from, and what it was used for. All the details, of the wood. Because, for me, if I had to do that, it would be, okay, that's a 2x4, and it came from Home Depot or Lowe's, and that's all I can tell you. But Pa, he had such a knowledge of the wood, and I asked him, Pa, how is it that you accumulated all this knowledge? He said, I read, and when I look at the wood, the Lord shows me, He reveals to me how to work the wood. And you would see that evident in the pieces he would make. I used to get on him because he never kept before and after pictures. But it was just, it would look like a piece of garbage coming in some pieces. And when they came out, they were just beautiful. They were just beautiful pieces. So, he told me once, the Lord showed me to work with my hands. And He told me, work the wood. So that talent in him was placed in him by the Lord. And boy, did he ever put it to good use. In the last few years, he was in bad health, so we checked on him from time to time. But, angels came along, worked in his family. Thank you all for the way that you ministered to him. And I'll tell you this, he loved you guys. He really did. He loved you guys. And fast forward to the last week and the last few days. I remember my last moments with him. Good boy. Right before he passed away. So I'm sitting on the couch, and the Lord just impresses on me. He says, I want you to go over there, and I want you to sing over him. I thought it was kind of a strange request, but I said, okay, Lord. So I went, started singing a hymn from Lamentations. It says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning, and great is your faithfulness, O Lord. Mm-hmm. So I remember singing that over him after several minutes, and then he finally took his last breath. But it's not until you come to the realization, you begin to reflect on a person's life before you realize how dear the Lord. So, Pa, we will see you again. Thank you for ministering to us while you were here. And thank you all for coming to honor his life. I appreciate you very much.